Hello and welcome to my Coco Nebulon guide. I am in no way an expert on here, but I've had some pretty good success, and I'll just share what has worked for me and just some general tips that should work for everyone. Now, her classification is a fighter, area control, and harasser, but her biggest role is harasser. She doesn't have a lot of health, so she can't take a very big pounding, so she's not a very big brawler. She's more of a stick behind the turrets and sort of poke at things, and that's why she's a harasser, and what her main skills are exactly for that. But she is a very, very useful character. She has so much utility with her skills. Now let's go in and I'll show you the skills. Now her first and main skill is the ball lightning. It's this ball that can travel through terrain. Nothing stops it. It can go through turrets. It can go through walls. And you can control when it explodes. And when it explodes, it deals damage and it knocks back people. So it can be used for a variety of things. Her second ability is Blaze. And what this does is it leaves a trail of static electricity behind her. And this has a base slow, and it's used for area denial. That's why she's an area denial character. Her main AA attack is actually a melee attack, but probably the most used upgrade for her melee is this item right here, the superconductor. And what that does is it gets a little bit of a ranged part to her melee attack, and that lets her poke at things from farther distance, because you really don't want to get close up to things like turrets and enemy characters unless they're kind of docile. For me, the build order that I go for is immediately go for boots. And that's just because I like having lots of movement. And then also right off the bat, I get the lightning ball. Now what that lets you do is that lets you deal with some harassment and lets you harass yourself. But then I generally wait until I have 210 solar. I come back, I get solar tree, and then usually this cooldown on ball lightning. And that lets you get as many balls out there as possible. My whole philosophy on not just Koco, but on any character, is that you should be using your main abilities as often as you can. And because if it's just sitting around there unused, it's not helping you in any way. So you want to get out as many lightning balls as possible. I then get this meta can because regeneration is really, really important. You want to be able to stay out there as long as possible and not have to rely on creeps to get your health back up, because you want to make sure your health stays nice and high. Even though you're not doing some of the major brawling, you are a very pivotal character because you are very strong on both offense and defense, and if you have to keep going to get creep, then you're not helping your team as much. So then after that, what I usually do is I'll go for either Blaze if it's in certain situations, Blaze is more important. When you're on a Gillian, it's a must, because what you can do with Blaze is set as a trap and you can detect invisible people. It's also very useful against a Leon, but if the Leon isn't going cloak or there's not a Leon, I will generally go for superconductor because it is a great upgrade. Not only does it add those particles that I'm talking about, but it also increases your damage as well, because if you look at it, it's the same amount of damage added for less cost. And so it is just incredibly useful to go for that first. I mean, I don't even use these that much because you rarely get to a point and maxed out. After that, I will go for speed on the Blaze, because movement with the Blaze is incredibly important. You become the fastest character and you can get out and get into situations and just be a very safe character. She has a very high survivability because of this. She can just go into somewhere, and put a blaze down to cover her escape or help others. And then after that, I go for usually damage of either of these damage, depending if I'm using the ball most. If it's something like a Froggy or something like that, I will definitely go for the blaze first. Things I want to slow down, like if something's really fast, I get the slowdown. I keep that. It's not always purchased, but I think it's much more useful than the other ones. Just this slowing upgrade is very good. So at this point, there's not a lot of things you can buy. It's left to these 4 upgrades, which I keep this one if I'm dealing with a Derple or things that I'd like the lightning, the blaze, because what this does is basically attaches a blaze effect to your ball, and that is very useful because sometimes you don't want to go rushing into somewhere to lay down a blaze, and so you can just send a Heavenly Fire lightning ball instead, and that accomplishes the same fact. And like I said, I almost never buy these ones, but I think they're the best upgrades that you can get. So Koco is a very, very strong defensive character. With her constant poking with her lightning balls and her blaze to create an area of denial, it is very hard to make a push when a Koco is around, especially on maps like AI Station, when right after your first turret goes down, one Koco can basically fend off an entire team and a push and just keep a super droid away. Koco is just incredibly useful for defense. Koco is very useful for offense as well. Not only can she poke behind a turret, that fear that is set into an enemy that, oh, am I going to get Koco balled? It's very real threat, and so you can deny people from resisting your pushes because of your presence there. Also, if left alone, once you get the superconductor, you start dealing a lot of damage to turrets. And so if you're left alone behind, like with a wave of creeps, you can start liquefying that turret's health. And what you can do is you can push away the oncoming droids to give you even more time. So it's a very dangerous thing to let a Koco just go wild on a turret. And even without that, the superconductor allows you to whittle down a little bit of health on the opposing turrets. Probably the most important factor of Koco is her lightning ball. It instills this fear in people that, oh, I can't do this, I can't go outside of my turret, and even there, I'm just not safe behind my turret, because one of the most satisfying things to do as a Koco is kill someone behind the turret. And this, a very good Koco can make it look easy, but it is not. You have to be very good at anticipating their locations and calculating where they're going to be. You have to know, like, oh, they're going to be jumping like this, or they're going to be running away like that, and it deals with a lot of anticipation. That fear of the lightning ball also lets your team put themselves into a little bit riskier situations, because the enemy team is going to be afraid of that lightning ball. They're gonna not step out from behind their turrets, letting your team hit on that turret even harder. A very good skill to try and pick up is when you're aiming at an enemy knot. It is very good idea to also have in that line a few creep or enemy bots. Because what that lets you do is, if you can see that, okay, I'm not going to hit them, then you can instantly, say, okay, explode it onto those droids, and that way it's not a wasted lightning ball, and it sometimes can be a very good thing, because you basically have two options. One, you can go for an enemy knot, but if you can see, oh, they're starting to run away, then you can also just do it on the droids, and it's much better all around. Her second ability, Blaze, should not be underestimated. It is very good on base. It has a base slowing and a base damage over time. It is very good for area denial. It is one of her strongest defense mechanisms. She can interrupt droids. She can defend people's retreats. It is a very good defensive weapon. But also, the way I have this built is with speed, and I get speed very early because what that lets you do is you then become the fastest thing on the battlefield. You can zip in and out of situations, and it's crazy. And it's that movement and the slowing that comes with the blaze that is what gives her amazing survivability. One situation you might run into as playing a Koco is facing an enemy Koco. This mirror match can get a little bit interesting because you both are very passive characters and are more interested in poking than straight out fighting. But a straight out confrontation will happen every once in a while. And an interesting thing that you can do is you can keep an eye out on your cooldowns to know when she will be done her cooldowns. And what that lets you do is anticipate when her ball will be coming out based on when yours can be coming out. Also, what you really want to do is you really want to avoid getting stuck into her blaze and do as much as you can to get her stuck in your blaze, because if she's chasing you, she slows down. If you're chasing her, the same thing goes. Because you both are not very aggressive, this kind of confrontation won't happen a lot, but it becomes very skill-based. And if you're not very confident, you should not engage head-on another Koco. And another interesting thing is that her high jump will allow you to basically jump over any lightning balls that come your way. She has, I think, the second highest jump, and so it's very hard to hit a Koco with a lightning ball unless you can time it perfectly. There are some other problem characters to face while playing a Koco, and most of these deal with denial of movement. There are knots that displace, like Sko, Leon, and Penny, and those deal with actually moving you, and that can be very deadly to a Koco. But then there are other things that slow you down and deny your movement, not just moving you. Things like Gnaw Spit, Ray's Time Rift, and an enemy Swiggin's Anchor. And of course another enemy Koco because of the base slowdown. So with things like Sko, what you want to do is you really want to keep out of your range. Get Superconductor early so you can start poking away at him, and you're always going to be poking him with your lightning ball, but just stay as far away from that throw as possible. It is very deadly. With Ray, what you want to do is not really try to engage her, but punish her every time she steps out of from behind her turret. And every time she pulls out her snipe, send a lightning ball her way, and she'll probably not be able to dodge it, and so just make her pay for every step out she takes. If she ventures really far into the battlefield, then is the time when you should chase, but you really do not want to chase anyone, and especially a Ray, close to a turret, because what happens is she drops her Time Rift, and you get really stuck, because that is just an instant slowdown, and you are very slow inside of that thing, so it is a death trap. Another character that makes it hard to face is Groggy. Now, because of his speed and his damage immunity, it is almost impossible to deal damage to him in his dive out or his dive in. In his escape, he has a lot of escape mechanisms, and it's very hard to hit him with a lightning bolt or ball. I found the best way to do this is to preemptively use your blaze so he dashes into you, and that gets you some initial damage onto him, and it will slow him down and potentially make chasing him easier. But also, you don't want to chase him that hard because he is incredibly hard to nail down, as he's a frog and nice and slimy. He can weasel his way out of a lot of damage, so don't commit very hard to trying and killing him. For a Swiggins, what you really want to do is wait until he anchors you and then use your ball. You don't want to use your ball preemptively because then you're stuck. And your key survivability trait is being able to run away, and being anchored down is very bad for that, as you can tell. So what you want to do is save it. You can just AA him, use superconductors, the shocks from that to sort of damage him, but you're not really going to be chasing him that much. Saving that initial lightning ball till he anchors you will usually let you get free. After he drops his anchor, like say he's after your ally and he anchors him, but you're still fine, then you can chase after him because he won't be able to do that much to him, and he's fairly slow unless you go for my brawling build from my other tutorial. But usually they can be an easy target, but again, you do not want to dive turrets for kills, to try and get kills, because usually that ends in your death. You can try and send a Coco ball, like a lightning ball, his way, but beyond that, you shouldn't be diving into turrets, getting in range of turrets that much, unless you have cover. So in conclusion, Koco is a very well-rounded character. She has got a lot of utility. She's good at offense, she's good at repelling pushes, she's also a very good harasser, which is her purpose, is you want to be as big a pain in the butt as you can to the other team. You constantly want to be doing as much damage to them as possible, but keeping yourself safe. Also, you are very good at taking out enemy creep, and you can knock them around, you can do a lot of damage to them, and that is a very big part in your defensive role, is you almost always want to nuke the enemy bots. Especially on a map like AI Station, if you don't have a Ray to take care of the flying droids, you really want to take out those droids yourself, and you should be able to kill them in 1 or 2 shots. And also, if there's an enemy gnaw, your job is to clear his weaklings, because you can deal with them from afar, you can keep them from growing up. That is another one of your jobs as a Koco. You don't have to be a team player as a Koco, but it sure helps. Acting like a team is very powerful, but it's not required as a Koco, which is what makes Koco, in my opinion, a very strong character. So yes, that is my guide. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will try this out. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.